66 million years ago, two forces collided. The real story was never told. The Primordials. Soren had said, "Watch, learn, wait." He had not said, "Watch them take the Amber Sea." There is a difference between patience and surrender. Dravon had always known which one he was capable of. The Ascendancy had completed their survey. The next step had always been the same: establish a foothold. The Amber Sea was their first choice. Shallow, resource-rich, easily defensible. They did not ask permission, they never had. In every world they had ever acquired, no one had ever required them to. Dravon had been watching since before dawn. He had received Soren's message: hold, wait, observe. He had held, he had waited, he had watched them survey his world. He had watched them record his people like terrain. He had watched them establish themselves on the shore of a sea that had existed here for longer than anything they had ever built. He held one more breath. Then he moved. Soren felt it the moment it happened. Not a message, not a warning. Dravon didn't send those, just the sensation, sudden, unmistakable, of something very large, moving very fast towards something it had decided to end. Soren closed his eyes for one moment, then opened them. "He's already there," he said to no one, and began to move. He did not run. Dravon never ran. He moved the way a force of nature moves, with absolute certainty of arrival, with no doubt about what happens when he gets there. The jungle knew something was coming. Everything that could move, moved. Everything that couldn't, went still. The soldiers saw him the moment he cleared the tree line. Their instruments registered the energy signature along his spine, the same anomalous reading that had flagged in the Great Forest Survey. This was not fauna. This was not terrain. This was something that had chosen to come directly toward them, and it was not slowing down. He planted his feet at the edge of the Amber Sea, and he released what he had been holding back since the lights first appeared in the sky. The earth answered him, not gently. The shoreline cracked, the water surged. The golden surface of the Amber Sea, which had been still for longer than anyone could remember, became something violent and alive. The Ascendancy soldiers felt it through their boots, their suits, their instruments. They had surveyed 100 worlds. Nothing had ever pushed back. The Ascendancy did not panic. They never did. They adapted. Weapons powered, signals sent. Assessment begun. The anomaly along the creature's spine, now understood as a weapon. The organizational behavior, now understood as coordinated resistance. They updated their classification. Obstacle had just become threat. They came without being called. Not all of them, not even most of them, but enough. They stood at the tree line and at the shore, and they did not move forward. They did not need to, because the message was not, "We will attack." The message was something older and, in many ways, more frightening. We are here. We have always been here. And we are not leaving. For a long time, neither side moved. The Ascendancy had the weapons. The Primordials had the ground. Both sides understood something that neither had fully understood before. This would not be simple. This would not be quick. And whatever came next, it would cost both of them something they could not predict. The Ascendancy withdrew, not because they were defeated, not because they were afraid, because what they had encountered required new data, new strategy, new assessment. They had never been resisted before. The concept required processing. They retreated to their ships with the same efficiency they did everything. But this time, for the first time, the efficiency had something underneath it. Something that, in a species less disciplined, would have been called uncertainty. Soren arrived as the last deployment craft disappeared over the horizon. He looked at the cracked shoreline, the disturbed sea, then at Raven. Raven met his gaze without flinching. Neither spoke for a long time. Then Soren said, not with anger, but with the weight of someone who understood exactly what had just changed. They know now. Yes, said Dravon. Good. Vaeron read the report 3 times. Resistance encountered. Seismic class energy discharge. Coordinated response from multiple species. Withdrawal recommended. In the entire history of the Empire, this report had never been filed before. Vaeron set it down, looked out at the world, and thought for the second time, the thought the Empire had no category for. They are not an obstacle. They are something else entirely. At the Ashen Peaks, Eldros felt the first strike the moment it happened. He felt the Earth answer Dravon. He felt the Ascendancy push back and then pull back. He had known this moment would come. He had hoped it would come later. He had known it wouldn't, and now, as the ground settled beneath him, he felt something he had been carefully avoiding feeling. The beginning. The first strike had been struck. The Ascendancy now knew what they were dealing with. The Primordials now knew they could push back. And somewhere between those two facts, a war that had been inevitable since the first light appeared in the sky had officially begun. Episode 7, Raw Power.